This is episode number 41 of the Gashouse Gang. Can you believe it? We've already done 41 of these bad boys. Welcome in alongside of Bernie Miklasz. I'm Matt Pauley. We are brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Bernie, it is good to see you. If you go by the Larry David Curb Your Enthusiasm rule, today is the final day where we can wish each other a Happy New Year.
I'll go with that. So Happy New Year to you and everyone watching us here on the Gashouse Gang.
We've got a lot to get into today. As always, if you are watching live via the social media channels, we encourage you to comment, and we'll try to address some of those comments as we go along. For those of you who are listening on the radio on KMOX, this is a show that we do live at 12 noon every weekday afternoon via the KMOX sports social media channels. And today it's me and Bernie. Sometimes Tom Ackerman is here. Sometimes Kevin Wheeler is here. On Monday, it is all four of us. We talk Cardinals baseball every single day. And Bernie will get into college football playoff. We'll get into the NFL, but we will start with the Cardinals. I was watching your video that you posted yesterday on your YouTube channel at The Bernie Show, and certainly encourage everybody to check that out for themselves and subscribe. I thought you did a really good job of going through kind of a bunch of different ramifications and tentacles of the idea that what happens if Nolan Arenado does not get traded. So I sort of want to jump off that because I think there's a few interesting things to talk through. And yesterday we did the Countdown to Opening Day show, which runs on KMOX, but across the Cardinal Radio Network. I don't think I'm giving away trade secrets when I say it's not a live show. Mike Claiborne and I pre-record that. Bernie, I'm so nervous every week that Nolan Arenado is going to get traded between the time that we record that and when it goes to air, because right now it really feels like every single storyline regarding the Cardinals is in somehow, some way connected to Nolan Arenado.
Well, you used a really good word there, and thanks for the compliment, but you used a great word there, tentacles. There are a lot of tentacles to this, and it's not a linear thing. It's like, oh, okay, Arenado's staying, period. Mm-hmm. You know, there are a lot of ramifications and things that will be impacted because of him staying if he stays. And I don't know how to handicap it. I think we agree. I think most people agree that the chances of him getting traded, I think, diminish every week, counting down to spring training. I would have said, I think I mentioned to Kevin Wheeler yesterday, I probably would have said in early December, there's about a 90% chance of him getting traded. And right now, I guess I'm kind of more of a 50-50 guy on this. I don't know. But there does not seem to be a robust market for him. And perhaps the dam will break when Alex Bregman settles in and makes a free agent decision about where he's going, because some of the teams didn't get him. Might take another look at Nolan Arenado as a trade candidate.
When we came out of the winter meetings, I said that there was a better percentage chance that Nolan Arenado would be traded before Christmas than he would show up to spring training as a Cardinal. And I don't know if I'm 50-50. I still think he's likely to get traded, but I've definitely come off of that statement because this thing has just been hanging around for a while.
And you would have been right. I mean, he vetoed the deal to Houston. I wonder if he regrets that in any way, because he's unless something happens that would surprise us. You know, Nolan Arenado was using social media to kind of lobby the Dodgers. Here I am. I love you. And then after that, when Paul Goldschmidt got signed by the Yankees, Arenado then briefly turned his attention to the Yankees and their fans. Then he's backed off. So I don't know really at this point where he would want to go. That's the thing that's maybe ominous about it, because if Boston doesn't bite, if the Yankees don't bite, if a couple other teams we mentioned don't bite, well, where is he going to go? I mean, there's a lot of places that would want. There are a few teams that would want him, but you know, basically the Cardinals would still be a better home for him than some of these places, like Seattle, for example. So I don't know how this thing's going to end now. I used to be like you, very confident, but it's not so much anymore. So what do you think of, in your mind, what are the, if we're going to call them repercussions or ramifications, if Arenado stays, what are some of the things that will change in terms of the outlook of the 2025 Cardinals, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things. I think first off, unless the Cardinals make an internal decision that they can carry more payroll than they want to right now, you're going to have to take some pieces away that could help you win games that you don't have as much of a replacement for. There's a clear replacement path for Nolan Arenado at third base with what they want to do with Nolan Gorman at third, and then everything else they want to do in second and left. It's all connected to each other. So that's one part of it. Another part of it is the mental aspect of Arenado. How unhappy would he be being in St. Louis after they've publicly said that they are looking to trade him? There's the opportunity cost that goes along with not being able to give the young players the runway. We've talked a lot about that. I mean, those are the tentacles. That's that's what's got to be figured out. And I've said this before on this show. I'll say it again. I think Cardinals fans who want Nolan Arenado to stick around need to pump the brakes a little bit on that one, because they want him to stick around for reasons of you want to see the team win and play at a high level. And like I said, unless the Cardinals change course, if he's around, they're going to cut payroll elsewhere, and that's probably going to hurt the team more than moving Arenado.
Yeah, it would probably mean, and we don't know for sure, but, do they have to entertain the idea of trading Eric Fetty, who will be a free agent after next season? I think he would be a coveted guy if teams knew he was available. Can you talk Sonny Gray into waiving his no trade clause? Because I doubt that they could, but Sonny Gray certainly would have value on the trade market. Situation whether this would influence the Cardinals' decision on Ryan Helsley. He'll make about a little bit under $8 million this coming season in his final year of the arbitration process. Then he becomes a free agent. They want to hold on to Helsley, but will they reconsider that? Who else of any value in terms of payroll value? Steven Matz. Is there a market for him? The liability is limited because he's only got 1 year left on that 4-year deal. It's $12.5 million, but teams may take a flyer on him if the Cardinals pick up some of that cost, because they figure, well, it's not like we'll be stuck with him for 2 or 3 years, but he's an injury risk, as we know. And then you and I, we've all four of us on the Gashouse gang have talked about this. Miles Miklasz does provide value with innings, and despite what some people say, there is value in pitching a lot of innings. But he's got a no-trade clause, and he has one of the worst ERAs among starting pitchers over the last 2 seasons combined. And he just doesn't miss bats. So what kind of market would there be for him, even if he wanted or he was willing to lift the no-trade clause? But, if Arenado is here, Gorman's not going to be the third baseman. He moves to second. He DHs. If he moves to second, I think that means Brendan Donovan would be in left field a lot more. Maybe Thomas Saggese doesn't make the club, because if Donovan's going to be the super utility guy, do you need 2 of those guys? The Cardinals' outfield offensively is rather lean. Maybe Donovan in left field means that they'll put Nootbaar in center field, or at least think about it. What does this mean for Alec Burleson? If Gorman's going to be a DH more than we thought, let's say, for example, well, DH bats were there for Burleson. Maybe not as many if Gorman is not going to be your third baseman. I mean, we could go on and on and on and on. There are a lot of vines to this that would influence how Ali Marmol fills out his lineup card based on what they thought they were going to be doing, and then the reality of what they have to do.
And Brian posts and says, I'd rather stay where there's no future, but a nice place to play instead of going somewhere that I don't want to play. And that makes me wonder, Bernie, and I've got no inside information on this whatsoever. This is just Matt Pauley's brain going in all kinds of places when there's an opportunity to do so. Does Arenado want to bet on himself to a point where he feels like he can have a bounce back season and have a great start to the year? And if he does that, maybe more opportunities would open up. He's looking at the market right now and saying, I'm Nolan Arenado and nobody wants me. Well, forget that. I'll show you who I am. I'll start off the season strong, and then that market's going to pick up again.
Well, I would think that thought is prominent in his thinking right now, because he works hard every offseason. No one ever doubts that. He took responsibility for his, by his standards, really mediocre season last year. So he's determined to make some changes. The age-related decline is very obvious. Those things can be hard to reverse, but they're not impossible to reverse. When I say reverse, I don't mean he would get back to peak level form, but where he would be better than he was certainly in 2024. I mean, I think that's possible. It's all about, I'm not going to get too deep in the weeds here. Arenado's power is almost exclusively pulling the ball in the air, whether it's a fly ball or a line drive, to left field. That's his pull. That's his pull field. And his fly ball numbers have been dropping. His ground ball numbers have been rising. And the percentage of pitches that he pulls in the air has really been dropping year by year. So if he could reverse that trend, he could have a bounce back season. The trend has really been going hard against him. And I think that's going to be a really challenge for him. But I'm not trying to have it both ways. I honestly think there's at least a shot that he could do that because he knows what he has to do. And that's a big part of getting it fixed.
The underlying numbers, though, are not great. You compare Goldschmidt and Arenado. I think Goldschmidt has a much higher chance of having a bounce back because you look at his bat speed, you look at a lot of those underlying numbers, they were really good. So if he can just clean up some small things like swinging at pitches in the zone and not swinging at stuff outside the zone, he's got an opportunity to regain some of what he's been. To your point, Bernie, those underlying numbers don't really exist for Arenado.
That's right. And they've never been great, but they're getting worse, and that's the point. I think Goldie will have a nice season for the Yankees. I think Goldie is going to be able to finally fix something. I think him being with Aaron Judge will help him, just as an aside note, because Aaron Judge looks up to Goldie, and Goldie and Aaron Judge have worked together in the offseason and exchanged hitting advice, and now he's going to be a teammate. And Aaron Judge is a really smart hitter, and he knows Paul Goldschmidt's swing because, again, they've worked together. I also just think being in that lineup will help him. I think Goldie, it's probably be good for Goldie where he doesn't feel all the pressure in the world. I'm the team leader. I'm the number one guy. I have to come through. I think he chews himself up in those type of scenarios. I think with the Yankees, there's some safety there in numbers, strength in numbers, where he doesn't have to be a franchise caliber hitter.
For those of you who are watching us live, you can head to the KMOX Sports Twitter account. We've got a poll up there right now. Nolan Arenado, trade or stay? And then you can let us know why in the comments. One comment saying, let the man go somewhere where they want to win. Well, Bert, they tried. They tried with the Astros.
Hey, I don't know why people forget about the no trade clause. It's not like it hasn't been reported 10 million times. Yeah. That he has the veto power over any deal. It's not as easy as just trade him. Trade him in a way that he'll say, yeah, I'll go there, as opposed to, no, I won't go there.
This is Gashouse.
He has a say, just like free agents have a say. Well, the Cardinals, I get tired of that. Cardinals ought to go sign this guy. I don't know why this guy signed there instead of the Cardinals. Well, because he's a free agent and he gets to pick where he wants to play. That's why.
It's also the Miles Miklasz discussion. I don't think Miklasz has shown any indication that he would accept a trade. He gets to sleep at home during spring training. He's very comfortable. There is nothing that has shown that he would even start to consider a trade. So we get these comments all the time from people when we're talking about, guys that get traded. Well, trade Miklasz. I don't know if there is a team out there that Miklasz would accept a trade to.
Well, and I'm speaking for you, my friend, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I know I'm right because you and I talk a lot. But are we in favor of the Cardinals trading Arenado? 100%. Are we in favor of the Cardinals hypothetically trading Miklasz? 100%. Are we in favor of the Cardinals trading Steven Matz? 100%. But are we in favor of Sonny Gray, the Cardinals getting a windfall, trading him? Would we be in favor of that? Maybe not 100%, but we would be in favor of that because it fits their soft rebuild. But it's not that simple. When you have no trade clauses, people get to decide where they want to go, the ones who have the veto power. And in Matt's case, if Cardinals fans are sick of him and see him as a bust where they gave the Cardinals, this is what I always don't understand either. The Cardinals gave him 4 years, $44 million. He has, relatively speaking, made few starts over the first 3 years. He's been okay out of the bullpen. But all Cardinals fans, if you took a vote, I think 98% at least would say, yeah, get rid of Matz. Okay, if you feel that way, why do you think another team's front office would covet him? right?
Yeah.
He
He keeps getting connected to Toronto. I feel like that could happen.
maybe
He could end up back there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There might be a market for him because again, it's only a 1-year liability. It's not a long-term anchor on you. So
and he had some success in Toronto before.
Right.
There's some other things there. So
Sure.
We are the Gashouse Gang. That's Bernie Miklasz. I'm Matt Pauley. Bernie, we are being brought to you by, like we are every day, by just a great local company in St. Louis, Saliga Heating and Cooling.
I'm always proud to represent Saliga Heating and Cooling. You know, the Miklasz family has been calling Saliga Heating and Cooling for 16 years, and they've helped us out a lot. And we trust them 100%. Really impressed with their knowledge and their professionalism and their class, their reliability. The integrity part is huge because, listen, unless those of you who are calling a heating and cooling service to look at a potential problem that could cost you a lot of money, people that aren't trained in this area would be vulnerable to kind of getting hustled, right? But Saliga Heating and Cooling doesn't do that. There have been situations where they probably could have talked us into buying a new boiler, which in fact we were ready to do. And then they told us, well, you know, you don't really need one yet. This one's old. Yeah, but you got a couple more years there. So hold off on this. Everything will be fine for at least a couple more years and we'll check back. See, that's what this independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer does. You can count on them when they come into your home and they give you advice because it's honest advice. You know why? Because they want to keep your business. They want to enlist you as a Saliga client. They've been around since 1927. Dan Saliga is the fourth generation owner and operator of this family business. In addition to the American Standard equipment, they have a maintenance program called the Priority Club. Become a member of that. I highly recommend it. It's got a lot of benefits. And if you go to SaligaHeatingandCooling.com, you'll see what those benefits are. It's worth the cost, and the cost is not prohibitive, far from it. And it's not too late to make sure everything's okay with your winter heat. Things are going to get worse here. So anyway, go to SaligaHeatingandCooling.com, SaligaHeatingandCooling.com to find out more about all of these things. And financial options are available subject to credit approval. Thank you.
That's Bernie Miklasz. I'm Matt Pauley. It's the Gashouse Gang presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Want to get into the college football playoff a little bit, Bernie. Want to go through two different topics on this.
Sure.
First off, whether or not this thing needs to be tweaked a little bit, and also not the downfall, but certainly not the impact that we thought we would see from SEC teams. Let's start with the actual bracket and the way this is set up. And it's already being reported that they are going to look at possibly doing a true bracket where the top four teams, no matter if they're conference champions or not, are going to be the four teams getting the bye. So that way there's not some funky stuff going on where you can have a better path as a worse seed. I don't know. I've generally liked the playoff. When you look at what the matchups would have been if you did that, I didn't think it was that much more overly compelling, but I do think it would be more fair if they went through that process.
I'm very confident that they'll tweak it and, remove a couple of things that made them look bad this year, which is, for example, Penn State having an easier path to the semifinals than Oregon, where Penn State was Penn State was a runner-up in the Big Ten. Oregon won the Big Ten and were undefeated. So why did they warrant an easier road to the semifinals? It's because of the system they put in. It's because of teams are getting buys that don't deserve buys, and because they're honoring this thing that was part of the original format where it's like, well, the conference champions, they receive an automatic bye. All conference champions are not created equal. I mean, I think that's pretty obvious. So they need to change that. I think they will change the seeding. They will change the bye format and try to get more equitable matchups early on. I don't think there's any controversy there. I think that's something they realize they're just going to have to do for the credibility of the tournament.
Yeah, it's easy. And the only thing that scares me, Bernie, is they have to get unanimous approval. So are the Big 12 people, are the ACC people going to be all in on that?
Well, I think they like TV revenue. I'm pretty sure that they do. And if they can tweak the system while also maybe expanding the tournament field over the next couple of years, it'll mean a lot more TV money for people that might be doubters within who are looking after their self-interest. And I also think, one thing that this year's tournament, I think, has shown us is that these teams with inferiority complexes need to just quit worrying about tweaks to the system because, it might negatively affect us. Listen, Arizona State proved it. Some other teams will prove it. You get in the tournament, you got a chance to beat anybody. Mm-hmm. If you think you're that damn good and you're worthy of a bye or special treatment, you think you deserve elite status because you won a conference that's mediocre, well, you shouldn't worry about who you're going to have to play right away. You should be confident to back it up by knocking the other guy's rear end down and declaring victory. So you can't have it both ways. You can't be whining about poor little us. We're going to get screwed. We don't have to stand behind any other conference. Why should we do that? Well, again, shut up and go beat some of these teams. And then you can show us how good you are. Other than that, I don't want to hear about it, especially from the ACC. At least the Big 12 rep this year, Arizona State, acquitted itself very, very well. Should have beat Texas, almost did. Texas pulled an escape.
And got some help as well. I mean, where are you at on that target? It was clearly targeting. I think the only argument is, do you call it in that situation or not?
Listen, I don't know what Kevin Wheeler and I were talking about this yesterday. I don't know what targeting is anymore. I don't even understand the process. They never explain the other flaw. It's a deeply flawed system because it's so subjective. And I realize these decisions have to be made quickly. And I realize that one set of eyes sees targeting, and I'm talking about officials, and another set of eyes might not see targeting. But one of the flaws in assessing targeting is that they don't explain why they reached the decision. Like the other day, it would have been great to get an explanation. There was no targeting because of this. This is what we saw. All right, this is why we made the decision. So they keep the public in the dark, and no wonder why football fans across America are howling about that. That's another thing that needs to be adjusted or reformed before next season. You just can't have this willy-nilly targeting system in place. I also think that this has been my philosophy for a long time. There are a lot of plays in a football game, and I never get into this like where it comes down to one play. Mm-hmm. Well, it's like, that team got totally jobbed. But wait a minute, how many plays did they run from scrimmage? How many times do they have to stop the other team? Yeah, it's never all about one play. But I thought that was an egregious error. But I'm not going to give Arizona State an excuse.
It's the Gashouse Gang. We are presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling. It feels like the other big narrative coming out of this college football playoff. There's only one SEC team here in this final grouping of 4. And Bernie, they've been an SEC team for about 15 minutes.
Yeah, things are really changing in the SEC. I think the NIL and the transfer portal have not completely leveled the playing field, but it's reducing the gap from the superpowers and others where, the SEC, which has had a very rough season and a very rough postseason so far. And again, like you pointed out, Texas may get to the championship, which would mean an SEC team in there. But number one, Ohio State's going to pound them. And number two, Texas was a Big 12 team last year, his first year in the conference. So I don't know that they fly the SEC flag fully yet. But I was looking at some recruiting stuff about 4- and 5-star recruits, and the SEC still pretty much dominates in that area, getting the most elite recruits from top to bottom. The SEC gets more of those players than any other conference. It's not even close. But here's the deal. Before NIL and before the transfer portal, coaches like Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, whomever, they could hoard prospects, mm-hmm. and they could keep those prospects in waiting. He said, my best cornerback's going to graduate a year from now, so I'm not going to play this kid much because I'm going to need him a year from now or 2 years from now. where they sort of parse out the playing time based on their current roster, where they keep kids in reserve and standing around practicing but not playing much. Well, kids don't have to stand around and watch now. If you're a coveted recruit and you go to Alabama, or you just name your SEC school, and you're not playing, and you could go somewhere else in a really good place, by the way, and you'd get paid and you can transfer immediately, and then you're on the field as a starting player the next season. I mean, that's what I mean, how it's kind of evened it out a little bit. Like Notre Dame yesterday, I don't want to go into the full details. Notre Dame wins. They beat Georgia yesterday with a lot of help from transfers.
Ton of transfers.
Including the kid that returned the kickoff for the touchdown. I mean, Notre Dame's incoming transfers were all over that victory. So that's just another anecdote of it. So anyway, the SEC has talent. They just can't hoard it the way they used to, which worked to their great advantage. I think the gap is narrowing. I mean, I'm not really big about overreacting to bowl games. I'm not talking about playoff games, bowl games, because I don't know each team's motivation level going in. I just don't. But the fact is, it's been a 1-5 bowl season for the SEC or 1-4 or 1-5 against the Big Ten. And if Texas loses to Ohio State, you can make it 1-5 or 1-6, whatever it is. The other thing, and if I could continue here, and I apologize for going long, but the other thing that to me doesn't get talked about enough, it isn't just the matter that the other teams, because of the transfer portal and NIL, have narrowed that gap between their conference and the SEC. The other thing that doesn't get enough attention is that because of the transfer portal and NIL, other teams in the SEC have used the system to get a lot better. I think the irony of this, all the people out there like slamming the SEC and making fun of the SEC, I get it. But when you look at teams like Mizzou, Ole Miss, South Carolina, Vanderbilt, that's just four. They have a much better chance of being a really good team in the SEC now, and they've actually proved that the last couple of years. In fact, Ole Miss and Mizzou have as many wins the last two seasons as Alabama. Ole Miss and Mizzou are only 2 of 7 power conference teams that have won 10-plus games the last 2 years. Mizzou and Ole Miss a few years ago, they had Matt Luke as the head coach. Nobody was going to games. Mizzou, we all know about. Those two coaches, Kiffin and Drinkwitz, and I think Shane Beamer at South Carolina and Vanderbilt as well, they've used this current system to their advantage to be more competitive in the SEC. So the bottom half of the SEC, or that real soft middle, isn't as soft anymore. The bottom isn't as soft anymore. So that puts the powers of the conference, the ones that we look to as powers, that puts them at greater risk when they're taking on these teams in conference play. LSU, a good example, losing to Florida, losing to who else they lose to? They lost to somebody they shouldn't have lost to. But there's a lot more risk now. It used to be the top teams were the top teams. They only had to worry about losing to each other, like Alabama versus LSU, Georgia versus Alabama. Now they can't take anybody for granted in this league. Look at Vandy. That should have proved that to everybody.
I also think priorities have changed a little bit, Bernie. Like, let's go to a fake utopian world. Players haven't been getting paid up until now. I know that's not true, but let's just pretend for a second that players are not getting paid under the table. If you are a top tier player, well, the thing that can be sold to you is the stadiums, the facilities, the TV, all that sort of stuff. And that's where the big time SEC schools are able to be in front of everybody. Well, now if money is the most important thing, there's going to be a lot of schools that can offer kids money, and they can, you're re-recruiting your team on an every year basis. And if a kid didn't get as much playing time as they want, they can go get another, they can go more money across the street.
Yeah. So that's what the power of the NIL has done. And listen, top programs, there's been a lot of money slipped under the table for decades. Yeah. So, you and I know this, I'm still charmed by the people that really still think somehow this is like a pristine, virtuous amateur sport. It's not. and actually I'm good with that because these players have been the ones for decades making the money for all these coaches and all these programs and all these conferences, and they've never got a cut. So let them eat, let them eat. And it's actually better for competitive balance this way. See, I always like it when fans complain. It's like, well, it's the same old teams every year. It's all we can count on it every year. You got the ruling class teams, and it's every single year. It's boring. Well, this new system is changing that. Mm-hmm. But yet the same people are still complaining. Complaining about what? I don't know.
But by the way, Bernie, it's not boring because look at TV ratings. When the blue bloods of college basketball and college football are playing, the ratings are at its highest. So when people say they get sick of seeing the same teams doing it, I call BS on that.
Well, I agree with you. And I do think, though, that I think it's healthy. And the irony, of course, Greg Sankey was one of the leaders of, driving through this new playoff format. See, he believed, I think, maybe the one mistake he made in this, he believed that the SEC would still be the ruling class. I don't think he understood the impact of NIL and the transfer portal. But he was one of the people pushing for an expanded playoff. And because of the expanded playoff, at least for right now, it's kind of hurt the SEC. They didn't get as many teams as they wanted, or they thought they would. They thought they would still continue to kick everybody to the curb. It hasn't worked out that way. Their teams, other than Texas, have gotten thrashed in this year's tournament. And Texas was very lucky to get by Arizona State after blowing a huge lead in the fourth quarter. But the point is, I think it's healthy for the sport to have every region represented rather than the Deep South. And in the Deep South, that would include, Clemson and that not just the SEC, like Clemson for a long time was a powerful program. They're kind of in the SEC footprint, even though they're not in the SEC. And there's some other teams that belong. But I think it's great to have Notre Dame in there. I think it's great to have teams from the Midwest in there. I think it's great to have Texas in there again. They're from the Southwest. I mean, you see regional representation, and I think as the years go by and that gap narrows between the previous heavyweights or the historic heavyweights and some challengers who now have the NIL and the transfer portal, I think we'll see more representation geographically. And I think it's good to have people engaged in every part of the country, like the old Pac-12, Pac-10, Pac-12 people. They basically went into the last few seasons of the previous system knowing that basically there's no chance.
Yeah. Or Pete Carroll, Reggie Bush, USC was the last time that league mattered.
Yeah. So the Pac, you rendered the entire West Coast irrelevant, other than the teams that came along later, like Washington and Oregon. I don't think that's good for the sport. So I like seeing fans and teams from all parts of the country if they earn their way in, right?
It's the Gashouse Gang. We are presented, Bernie, by our friends over at Saliga Heating and Cooling.
Yeah, one thing about Saliga Heating and Cooling is, and I'm going to talk about this again because we're getting all this bad weather. And who knows? It could be a harsh winter. It's not too late to get Saliga Heating and Cooling to come out to your home and conduct a check. This proud, independent American standard heating and air conditioning dealer, it's got the Priority Club, and that is a maintenance program. And if you become a member, and listen, the Miklasz families we're a member. I wouldn't advise you to do it unless we believed in it, because we live it and we use it. And the maintenance program means that Saliga will come out, for example, before the hot weather hits you and make sure your air conditioning is running well. There aren't any problems. They'll come out before the winter hits you, make sure your heating is working well. There are no problems. And the benefits of this Priority Club that's available at SaligaHeatingandCooling.com, preventative maintenance. They catch little problems before they come big problems. Safety, peace of mind, economical benefits where you can extend the equipment life by having maintenance done. It's service you can trust. It's priority scheduling. If you're a member of the club, that's why it's called the Priority Club. Finances options are available subject to credit approval. And of course, American Standard Heating and Air is the best in the business. So If you need any more info, just go to SaligaHeatingandCooling.com. The phone number is 314-481-7333. But again, you can find out all this info and more at SaligaHeatingandCooling.com. Thank you.
It's the Gashouse gang. We're starting to wrap things up alongside of Bernie Miklasz. I'm Matt Pauley. Bernie, want to do a few quick hitters here?
Sure, man.
In our final 2-3 minutes that we have.
I'll be quick.
That poll up at the KMOX Sports Twitter account, Nolan Arenado, trade or stay. 69% of the respondents say trade. So it seems like most Cardinal fans do want to see him move on. Some of the comments on that. Ryan says, it's not because of Arenado. The Cardinals are not set up to win now. Arenado wants a chance at a championship before his career is over. He doesn't have many years left at a high level. Get what you can and let him go to a contender. That's what they're trying to do. They just don't want to take too much salary.
Yeah,
that's exactly what they're trying to do.
You know, and the thing of it is, it's like, and I know because I've talked to a lot of people that go to my YouTube channel about this, and they're just saying, well, the Cardinals could win this year, so they got to keep Arenado. That's a reason to keep him. And I always say, well, win what? I mean, Arenado is a big part of their team the last 2 years, and I'm not saying in any way it's his fault, but he was part of the problem with his decline offensively. They had a losing record in games that he started the last 2 years. So, I mean, the idea that you keep Arenado without doing other things to make your team better, but if you keep him, you'll have a better chance to win. How exactly? If you're not going to upgrade the pitching, you're not going to upgrade the outfield, if you're not going to bring in outside talent to upgrade even just your depth, well, just bring in Arenado back. How does that move the needle? It doesn't.
It doesn't.
So...
And the comment that was just up saying, could the Cardinals trade Arenado to the Yankees for Stroman?
I hope
in
not.
A salary swap? Like that doesn't, and unless you can then trade Stroman and spin him off. But if you can do that, the Yankees can do that. So I don't think that's an answer as well.
He collapsed late last season.
Yeah.
18 million this year, and he pitches 140 18 million last year. If he pitches 140 innings this year, then a vesting option kicks in. And then you have to pay him $18 million in 2026. So, I mean, if you're going to use him as a starting pitcher, what are you going to do? You're going to cause a controversy within the clubhouse when he gets to close to 130, 140, and he say, we got to shut him down now. I mean, do you really want to invite that type of soap opera into your clubhouse?
No,
100%. People don't think this stuff through.
Yeah. The ratings for the Winter Classic were terrible. Worst rated Winter Classic ever. The NHL moved it from New Year's Day to New Year's Eve, Bernie. I understood the concept of it because they were trying to avoid everything going on TV on New Year's Day. But my goodness, I don't know if there was a worse time than 4:00 on New Year's Eve. Nobody can watch that thing.
Yeah, in fairness to them, I didn't raise a stink about that when they announced the schedule change, but I did think, are they sure? Is this the smart move? And I think we have our answer. It was not the smart move. You're right, man. At 4:00, depending where you live, especially, I mean, people are getting ready to go out on the town or getting ready to host their own parties. I mean, they're running to the store last minute. They're making sure that that they're picking up their fancy clothes from the dry cleaner or whatever. I mean, nobody's going to New Year's Day. Everyone's lazy. Everyone's in a mood to just kick back and eat and drink and be merry. Yeah,
New Year's Eve.
Not a good gamble, man. It didn't work.
No. NFL this weekend, the big game is the Sunday nighter with the Vikings and the Lions. Winner gets the top seed in the NFC, wins the division. A little intrigue to the games coming up tomorrow. If the Ravens were to get beat, which is very unlikely, the Steelers could swoop in for a division. But it's not an overly compelling final weekend of the regular season.
I think that Sunday nighter is a great one, and I have mixed feelings about it. I think Minnesota's got an excellent chance to win the game just because Detroit's really, 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 really beat up. And the Minnesota defense is sort of the secret formula. People we talk about Sam Darnold and Justin Jefferson and that great offense they've had, and Darnold's been outstanding. But boy, that Brian Flores defense, they just come at you in all different looks and shapes and forms. You never know where the pressure's coming, and they manage to disrupt every quarterback they play against. With all the injuries the Lions have, I think they're vulnerable. Let's just see if Minnesota can rise to the occasion and get it done. I think they can, but am I 100% confident? Of course not, but I think they can.
Bernie, have a wonderful weekend. All of our viewers and listeners, I hope they have a wonderful weekend as well.
Matt, we'll talk to you Monday here on the Gashouse Gang with Tom Ackerman and our guy, Kevin Wheeler. You and me, the foursome, will reunite as we do every Monday.
That's Bernie Miklasz. I'm Matt Pauley. This has been the Gashouse Gang presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling.